We typically associate the early Mughal Empire with unimaginable wealth and invincible armies, but in 1542, that image was replaced by a very different reality. This is Emperor Humayun. He is currently a homeless wanderer in the deserts of Sind, possessing no throne and no territory. To survive, he is reduced to asking foreign rulers for basic shelter. His situation is so dire that when his son, Akbar, is born at the remote Umarkot fort, the Emperor of India cannot afford even the simplest celebration to mark the birth of his heir. It raises a massive historical question. How did the successor of the mighty Babur lose entire kingdoms and end up in exile in the sand in less than a generation? The answer traces back 2 years to the banks of the Ganges. The Battle of Kannauj was the moment the Mughal military machine finally stalled, revealing that the empire's greatest vulnerabilities weren't on its borders, but within its own camp. By 1539, the Mughal state was already under immense pressure. Humayun had just survived a disastrous defeat at Chausa, narrowly escaping the Afghan leader Sher Khan. But instead of a unified response, the Mughal high command fractured. Humayun's brothers, Kamran, Askari, and Hindal, refused to coordinate their forces, choosing to protect their individual interests rather than the empire itself. This disunity filtered down to the soldiers. Having seen the slaughter at Chausa, the rank and file were terrified. By the time they marched toward their next encounter, the army's morale had already reached a breaking point. The opposition was the exact inverse. After his victory, Sher Khan took the title Sher Shah. He had successfully consolidated the Afghan tribes into a single, highly motivated fighting force. Sher Shah was a pragmatist. He understood that a partial victory would only delay the inevitable, so he began designing a campaign intended to achieve the total annihilation of Humayun's remaining influence. When the two armies finally met, the battle was a formality. The Mughals were already psychologically compromised, facing an enemy that was more organized and more disciplined than they had ever been. On May 17, 1540, the two forces converged near Bilgram, near the Ganges River. It was the height of summer, and the heat was as oppressive as the stakes of the battle. Sher Shah did not rely on a disorganized charge. He used his cavalry and elephants to apply methodical, rhythmic pressure against the Mughal lines, forcing them into a defensive posture they couldn't maintain. Under this weight, the Mughal defense began to buckle. The internal friction among the generals meant that when one section of the line wavered, the others failed to move in and provide support. As the Afghan pressure intensified, panic set in. What began as a tactical withdrawal quickly turned into an uncontrollable stampede, with thousands of soldiers abandoning their weapons to flee. All semblance of a standing army dissolved. The painting from the era shows the result. A crowded, chaotic mess where order was replaced by a desperate rout, leaving the Mughal throne completely vacant. The physical collapse at Kannauj was the unavoidable outcome of the psychological and political fractures that had been growing within the Mughal camp for years. In the wake of the battle, the Mughals were effectively erased from northern India. Sher Shah Suri was now the undisputed ruler of the region. He immediately focused on the mechanics of the state. He replaced the cluttered local currencies with a standardized silver coin called the rupia, creating a stable foundation for trade across his new empire. He also prioritized logistics, building an advanced postal network and paving what would become the Grand Trunk Road. Centuries later, these same routes are still the primary arteries for modern commerce and transport. While Sher Shah won his empire through military discipline, he secured it through administrative foresight. He demonstrated that a conqueror is only as effective as the roads, coins, and systems he leaves behind. The fall of Humayun at Kannauj serves as a reminder that without internal cohesion, even a legendary dynasty can be toppled by a well-organized rival. Yet in the long arc of history, this catastrophe wasn't a permanent end. Humayun would spend 15 years in exile, slowly gathering the resources and alliances necessary to eventually return and reclaim his capital. This period of failure and displacement changed the trajectory of the dynasty. It was in the aftermath of this collapse that his son, Akbar, was born and raised, eventually emerging to transform the Mughal name into one of the most powerful empires the world has ever seen.